Have you ever been completely fine, doing absolutely nothing, and suddenly, your brain decides to remind you of something embarrassing you did 3 years ago? Maybe you said something stupid in front of people. Maybe you waved back at someone who wasn't waving at you. Maybe you fell in public. Maybe you sent a message to the wrong person. Or maybe it was something so small that nobody else probably remembers it anymore. But somehow, you do. And the strange part is this: you can forget what you ate 3 days ago. You can forget entire conversations. You can forget where you put your keys 5 minutes ago. But your brain can suddenly pull up one humiliating moment from years ago, in perfect emotional detail. And now you're lying in bed thinking, why did I say that? Why did I do that? What were they thinking? Why am I still thinking about this? It feels ridiculous. But there's something important happening underneath it. Your brain may not be replaying that moment because it wants to torture you. It may be replaying it because it thinks there is still something you need to learn. And once you understand why your brain does this, you may stop being so embarrassed by the fact that you remember. You may even start seeing those memories differently. Because maybe the problem isn't that your brain remembers too much. Maybe it's that your brain hasn't finished interpreting what happened. Think about how strange human memory really is. Your brain doesn't record your life like a security camera. It doesn't save every second equally. If it did, you'd be overwhelmed by millions of meaningless details. Instead, your brain constantly decides, what matters? What should I remember? What can I ignore? And emotional experiences can get a very different treatment from ordinary ones. That's why a completely normal Tuesday from 5 years ago can disappear, while one awkward conversation from that same year can stay with you. Because the embarrassing moment wasn't just an event, it carried emotion, and more importantly, it carried social meaning. Maybe you felt exposed. Maybe you felt judged. Maybe you suddenly became aware of how other people might see you. And that matters because humans are deeply social creatures. For most of human history, being accepted by the group wasn't just about feeling good. Belonging mattered. Reputation mattered. Being rejected could have serious consequences. So your brain became extremely sensitive to social mistakes. And embarrassment is basically your mind saying, something about how I was seen just changed. That's why embarrassment can feel so intense, even when the actual event was tiny. Your brain isn't only asking, what happened? It's asking, what did this mean about me? And that's a much more powerful question. Imagine you make a small mistake in front of 10 people. You say the wrong thing. Everyone laughs, the conversation continues. 10 minutes later, they're talking about something completely different. For them, the moment is over. But for you, it can become a memory. And later that night, you replay it. Then again the next week, then randomly 6 months later. And eventually you start thinking, everyone must remember that. But here's where your brain can deceive you. There's a psychological phenomenon often called the spotlight effect. We tend to overestimate how much other people notice our appearance, mistakes, and behavior. Why? Because you experience your own life from the inside. You hear every thought, you notice every mistake, you feel every awkward second. You are constantly aware of yourself. But other people don't have access to that experience. They're busy thinking about themselves, their own appearance, their own mistakes, their own conversations, their own problems. The person sitting across from you might have forgotten your embarrassing moment 5 minutes later, while you replay it 5 years later. And that's one of the cruelest things about embarrassment. You can become the archivist of a moment everyone else deleted. But there's another reason these memories can keep coming back. Your brain may be trying to protect you. Imagine you touch something hot. You don't need to write down the experience. You don't need a motivational speech. Your brain simply learns, don't do that again. Pain teaches, fear teaches, and social embarrassment can teach too. Your brain may store an embarrassing experience as a warning. Remember what happened when you said that. Remember how uncomfortable that felt. Don't make the same mistake again. In that sense, the memory isn't necessarily an attack, it's a prediction system. Your brain is trying to use the past to prepare you for the future. But here's the problem. Sometimes the lesson survives longer than the situation that created it. Maybe you embarrassed yourself at 16. You're 25 now. You're a completely different person, different experiences, different confidence, different friends, different understanding of the world. But your brain can still carry the emotional lesson from that 16-year-old version of you. And that's where things get interesting. Because sometimes, your brain is protecting you from a version of yourself that no longer exists. And then there's the replay itself. Have you ever noticed how your memory doesn't just appear? You start editing it. You think, I should have said this. I should have stayed quiet. I should have walked away. I should have reacted differently. And now you're not simply remembering what happened. You're creating alternative versions of what could have happened. This is where reflection can turn into rumination. Reflection asks, what can I learn from this? Rumination asks, why am I like this? Reflection has an endpoint. Rumination keeps reopening the same case. You become the detective, the prosecutor, the judge, and somehow, you are also the defendant. You keep reviewing the evidence, looking for the exact moment you became embarrassing, trying to find the perfect explanation, trying to rewrite a past you can no longer change. And that's exhausting, because the brain loves unfinished problems. If something feels unresolved, it can keep returning to it. So you don't necessarily need to erase the memory. You need to decide whether there is still something useful inside it. Now here's something most people don't realize. Every time you remember something, you're not necessarily watching the original event again exactly as it happened. You're remembering your memory of it. And your current emotional state can influence how that memory feels. Think about that. The event may have happened once, but you may have emotionally experienced it hundreds of times afterward. The original moment lasted 30 seconds. The replay may have lasted hours. So eventually, the memory can become bigger in your mind than the event ever was in reality. That's why an old embarrassing moment can feel strangely alive. You're not just remembering what happened. You're remembering how you felt about what happened, and sometimes how you feel about yourself now. And this is why embarrassing memories can appear at the strangest times. You're brushing your teeth, driving, taking a shower, trying to fall asleep. There's no emergency. Nothing is happening. And suddenly, remember that thing you did in 2019? Why now? Because quiet moments give your mind room to wander. When external stimulation drops, old memories and thoughts can surface. Sometimes a tiny cue can trigger them. A song, a smell, a location, a sentence someone says, a facial expression, or even a feeling that resembles the original emotion. You may not consciously notice the connection, but your brain can. And suddenly you're back there. Same memory, different year, different person, same emotional sting. But here's where I want you to pause. Because maybe you've been asking the wrong question. You've been asking, how do I stop thinking about this? Maybe a better question is, why does this memory still have power over me? Those are completely different questions. The first one tries to suppress the memory. The second tries to understand it. And understanding gives you something suppression doesn't: choice. So the next time one of these memories appears, don't immediately fight it. Don't tell yourself, why am I still like this? Don't turn the memory into evidence that something is wrong with you. Instead, notice it. Oh, that's that memory again. Then ask, is there actually something here I need to learn? Maybe there is. Maybe you said something you genuinely regret. Maybe you treated someone badly. Maybe the experience revealed something about yourself. If so, learn the lesson. Apologize if you can, change the behavior, and move forward. But if there is no lesson left, if you've already learned it, then you don't need to keep reopening the case. You can tell yourself, I learned this already, and continue with your day. Because growing up isn't just becoming better at what you do. It's also becoming better at understanding who you were. You were awkward sometimes. You made mistakes. You said things you wish you hadn't. You trusted the wrong people. You reacted badly. You didn't know what you know now. That's not evidence that you were broken. That's evidence that you were learning. And maybe that's what makes these memories so painful. You're judging an older version of yourself, using information that version of you didn't have. You know the outcome now. You know what you should have said. You know what you should have done. But the person standing in that original moment didn't know any of that. They were doing the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. And maybe that version of you deserves a little more compassion than you've been giving them. So here's a simple way to handle the next embarrassing memory that comes back. Notice it. Don't panic. Don't fight it. Just recognize, I'm remembering something uncomfortable. Then reframe it. Ask, is everyone really thinking about this as much as I am? Probably not. Then learn from it. Is there something genuinely useful here? If yes, take the lesson. And finally, release it. Not because the memory never happened, not because it wasn't embarrassing, but because you don't need to keep paying for the same moment forever. You can remember something without reliving it. You can acknowledge who you were without becoming that person again. And you can carry the lesson without carrying the shame. Maybe that embarrassing moment from years ago keeps coming back because your brain hasn't forgotten it. Maybe it keeps coming back because some part of you still believes there is unfinished business there. But sometimes there is nothing left to fix. There is only something left to accept. You are not 16 anymore. You are not the person who said that thing. You are not trapped inside that conversation. That room is gone. That day is gone. Those people have continued living their lives. And so have you. So if your brain brings that memory back tonight, you don't have to fight it. You don't have to hate yourself for remembering. You can simply say, I remember, I learned, I'm different now, and let the moment pass. Because the goal isn't to forget every uncomfortable memory. The goal is to remember your past without becoming trapped inside it. This is Beyond Focus, a place to understand the psychology behind the things you experience every day, but rarely stop to question. If this video made you understand something about your own mind that you had never noticed before, subscribe to Beyond Focus. Because the next thing we explore might explain something about you that you've been experiencing for years without ever knowing why.